Hi everyone. This topic 11 of operations management is about benchmarking. Benchmarking in operations management. What is to benchmark? What is the purpose of benchmarking? The types of benchmarking we have, the steps in the benchmarking process, gap analysis in benchmarking. All these areas are very critical in benchmarking. To benchmark in a layman's language is to look at what others are doing, and then you try and get their best practices. Because not everything someone is doing is best practice. So benchmarking is searching for those best practices that will lead to the superior performance of a company. So it means I go to a company that does the things that I do, and then I try to search for the best practices. What is it that they are doing that I consider to be best in terms of their practices? So that is the definition, the basic definition of benchmarking. It has so many definitions. It is a systematic and continuous process for evaluating a product, service, and work of an organization that are recognized as representing best practices. It is the same thing. You benchmark from those companies which are the best, in simple terms. So you just don't copy what everyone is doing, but you try and get the best out of the best. Purpose of benchmarking for continuous improvement purposes. It also helps you to set performance standards. If you want to know how best you can be able to perform and what standards do you need to be able to perform, then you benchmark. Number 3, it helps you to identify the best practices out there. It also gives you an edge in terms of gaining competitive advantage for customer satisfaction reasons. You want to satisfy your customers because you want to give them the best. Cost efficiency, risk management, it drives innovation. All those are benefits of benchmarking. It enhances product or service quality. It enables you to make strategic decisions, etc. Then we go ahead and look at the types of benchmarking. Process benchmarking, you're benchmarking from the process. Performance benchmarking is another type. Strategic benchmarking, competitive benchmarking. So it just means what are you trying to benchmark? Is it on the process side? Is it the performance? Is it strategic? Is it competitive? Is it functional? Is it internal, external? Is it international? So every type of benchmarking will guide you on exactly what you want to do to become the best. Product benchmarking, innovation benchmarking, best-in-class benchmarking. That one means you go and benchmark from those who are the best. So once you have done any type of benchmarking, so you cannot benchmark everything. You need to sit down and ask yourself, what area do I need benchmarking? So that you can be able to go for that specific type of benchmarking. Then we go to the methodologies. As I've said, one benchmarking does not fit everything. If I go to a company and see how they do their processes, it does not mean that I will copy exactly what they do. Because for them to get to that level, there is some effort they have placed in one way or another. So you have to have a plan on how you will go to benchmark. So you can start by plan or do a checklist, come up with a checklist. What do you want? So here you plan, you do, you check, you act. Number 2, you can do the input, process, output, outcome. So these are just methodologies that can help you benchmark, because it's so difficult to be able to go to a person's company and tell them, we want to be like you. How do you want to be like them? There is number 3, the 6-phase benchmarking process. You can use a process of benchmarking where you plan, analyze, integrate, action, maturity, review. You can use the SWOT analysis to be able to benchmark. Collaboration benchmarking, best practice benchmarking, all those are methodologies. So a methodology is a method that you can be able to use to be able to achieve the results you want from a benchmarking process. Then we go straight ahead and look at the steps in the generic benchmarking process. There is a generic benchmarking process where most people, if they want to benchmark, they will use this process. Step 1, identify the need and objectives. Why are we benchmarking? Step 2, select the benchmarking subjects. What are we benchmarking? Are we doing it on the product? Are we doing it on the process? Are we doing it on the strategies? So select a benchmarking subject. Step 3, identify benchmarking partners. These are now companies where you'll go to benchmark from, or organizations that you will be able to compare your businesses with theirs. Step 4, determine data collection method. How will you collect data? Will you use questionnaires? Will you use interviews? Will you do site visits? Will you involve surveys? So there are so many ways of collecting data. But remember, you're collecting data from another company, so come up with a very good way of getting data that can assist you. After determining the data collection method, you go ahead and collect the data. Once the data is collected, you analyze the data. You choose what is good for you. Not every data is important. So step 7, you report findings and recommendations. This is what we found out. That is the reporting part. And then you develop an action plan. What can we be able to do with this data? That is now an action plan. You monitor and review. Of course, you go ahead and act. And then you monitor and review. This action plan that we developed, is it working for us? You monitor and review, and then you repeat the process. Keep on repeating the process to make it perfect. Because the first time you do what others are doing, it may not work, because maybe there is something they do differently that you did not capture very well. So you keep repeating the process. Then another aspect of benchmarking is also the gap analysis in benchmarking. Is there a gap? You cannot go to benchmark if there is no gap. So you first have to sit down and find out, is there a gap? You conduct a gap analysis. And how do you go about it? There are steps of conducting a gap analysis. You define objectives, you measure the current performance, identify benchmark standards, compare and identify gaps. You want to see if there is a gap. You prioritize areas for improvement, you come up with action plans, you implement the changes, you monitor and review, and then you repeat the analysis. Now this is the gap process. You're trying to find out, is there a gap? Yes, they are doing things differently from what we are doing, but is there a gap? Or we are doing the same thing but in a different manner, but still achieving the same result. So gap analysis is very critical because it will help you really understand if there is a gap or it is not there. Then benefits of gap analysis in benchmarking. When you're doing benchmarking, there are certain benefits of conducting gap analysis, like clarity purposes, just a clear understanding if there is a problem or if there is a gap. Focused efforts, resource allocation, strategic decision making, and then continuous improvement. So if you conduct a gap analysis, you're likely to get all those categories of benefits. So this topic is very critical, very interesting, because at the end of the day, I'll be able to know what is my position in the industry once I do benchmarking. Companies which don't do benchmarking, they always think they are the best. A company can come and tell you, this is what we produce, this is how we produce, and then to the eyes of people who don't know that type of producing, they feel this is the best company. But the day you will leave your comfort zone and decide to go and see what others are doing, that is when you will know that it is not that we are doing better than them. There are some players out there who are very good in what they do. So that is the importance of benchmarking. And most high-end companies which are very way ahead in the market, they do benchmarking, whether it is local or international. As long as they are able to identify a company that is like them in the industry and they are doing better than them, they can go and benchmark from there. There are challenges of benchmarking which people know, things like maybe a company may not give you a lot of information. Those are normal challenges. So you try as much as possible to get information from whichever sources, as long as you get information that can help you to be able to benchmark. So that is it for now. We can be able to see more when we meet for the class.